Okay, here we are again at the old principle. It's an English instructional program, 老校长, and I am the old principal. Now, today's story is from a friend of mine, actually, and later on he's going to tell more story. But today, his story is My Ulcer on Pitcairn Island. That is an island. That's okay, how do you say 皮特肯海岛? I think that's the way you say it, but that's okay. We'll ask our storyteller to come out here, then we can find out what Pitcairn Island is. Okay, 皮特肯海岛. That's right. Okay, have you ever been to Pitcairn?
No.
Would you like to go to Pitcairn?
Yeah.
But that's a long, long ways away. A long, long, long ways away. And
Yes.
Today's story will emphasize that it's a long ways. 非常非常远的一个地方. Is there any place in the world that's so far away? Yes. So, would you read the story?
Sure.
Yeah, just go ahead.
Okay. A friend of mine lived on Pitcairn Island in the early 1980s. Pitcairn Island is about halfway between New Zealand and Ecuador in South America. It's really about the most remote place on Earth, mainly because there's no airstrip there. Everything that comes from or goes to Pitcairn has to travel by ship, and the island doesn't lie on the shipping lanes. It's a tiny island having only 2 square miles of land surface. The people who live there descend from the mutineers of HMS Bounty, who landed there in 1790. He told me this story. Even though we lived in what some people called paradise, I got a stomach ulcer. My wife, Martha, was medical officer, and she tried to find a cure, but it wasn't working. She needed to have blood tests to diagnose the illness, but she had no laboratory. So she decided I'd have to go to the hospital in New Zealand, 3,200 miles away. Finding a ship to stop at Pitcairn was difficult, but after 2 weeks of waiting, a ship stopped to pick me up. And then it took 6 days to get there. I was only in the hospital for 10 days, but it's hard to find a ship that's willing to stop at Pitcairn because it's off the shipping lines. I worked at odd jobs near Auckland while my employer looked for a ship. Finally, after 3 months, we found a ship, but it was docked in Houston, Texas. So I flew to Los Angeles where my parents met me. They drove me to Fort Worth, Texas, and my brother drove me down to Houston. The ship stopped at Curacao in the Caribbean and then went through the Panama Canal. After 3 weeks at sea, I finally arrived back at Pitcairn, 4 months after I'd left. It's the longest time I've ever been away from home.
Hey, you know what the moral of the story is? Don't ever get sick. Not if you live on Pitcairn Island.
That's true.
Okay, today, thank you, sweetheart. Today we're going to talk a lot about geography, 地理, and you're going to have a lot of names. Some of the names I wrote down. Some of the names you may not know. So, what can I say? Listen real carefully. Okay, a friend of mine, and he's really a friend of mine, lived on Pitcairn Island in the early 1980s. No, he's not that old. I mean, I may be the old principal. We're not that old. Okay, the early 1980s. Okay, Pitcairn Island is about halfway between New Zealand and Ecuador. Now, let's take a look at that. Pitcairn, 皮特肯海岛 is about halfway between 新西兰, okay, 新西兰, New Zealand. I've been there. Have I been there? Been there once. No, I've been there twice. Okay? Long ways away. So, think of Australia, 澳洲, and it's down, a long ways away. Okay? And it's halfway between that and Ecuador in South America. 南美洲 Ecuador 的一个国家. So, it's right out in the middle of the sea. Going on. It's really about the most remote place on earth. 人家就说是最遥远，全世界最遥远的一个地方。Okay, on earth, 全球 on earth. Mainly because there's no airstrip there. Okay, no airstrip meaning 没有飞机跑道. You'll see why in just a minute. Well, you saw the picture. The picture looks like it's just a mountain. There's no place for an airplane to land. Just cannot land there. Everything that comes in or goes to Pitcairn, everything that comes from or goes to Pitcairn has to travel by ship. 必须有船的这个运到那个地方去. And the island doesn't lie, okay, on the shipping lanes. You know what a shipping lane is? Okay, a shipping lane is 航线. Okay, so a shipping lane is a 航线. It's the route or the way that ships usually travel. So the island does not, what does it say? Doesn't lie on. 不在这个航线上. Okay, so it's very 很遥远的一个地方 going on. It's a tiny island. Okay, very tiny island, having only 2 square miles of land surface. Okay, 2 square miles, 2平方英里的 land surface, 就是地面上. Okay, so it's not a big island, and it's mountainous. It's not flat. Going on. The people there descend from mutineers. Now, woo, that's a big word. I need my cheat sheet here for a minute. Okay, descend is 后代. Okay, so the descendants are 后代. So the people descend from mutineers. Okay, what is mutineers? 哗变的水手. Okay, 哗变的水手. Okay, let me explain that since I don't speak very good Chinese. let me explain. On a ship, when the ship is traveling and it's moving towards some destination, 朝这个目的地, okay, if the 水手, the sailors, do not like what is happening, they may mutiny. Mutiny simply means that 提出抗议, and they take control of the ship. Now I have written here 哗变, but I'm not even sure 哗变的这个水手. Now this is against the law. 全球这个是非法, 犯法. And we are going to tell the story about this later on. Not today, but my friend is going to help me tell this story. But not today. Today we're talking about my friend. Anyway, the people who live on that descend from the mutineers of the HMS Bounty. HMS Bounty is the name of the ship. It's the name of the ship, okay? And the ship landed there in 1790. So we're talking about 1890, 1990, more than 200 years ago. Wow, that's a long, long, long time ago. 200 years, they landed there in 1790. Going on. Here's the story my friend told. I will tell you the story of Pitcairn Island later on, but here's the story my friend told. His story. Even though we lived in what some people call paradise, 天堂, 有些人他这个称呼那个地方是天堂. Okay, I got a stomach ulcer. What is a stomach ulcer? Have you ever had a stomach ulcer? Oh, I hope not. I hope you've never had it. 胃溃疡. Stomach ulcer. 溃疡 is ulcer, stomach is 胃. 胃溃疡 is stomach ulcer. So my friend got a stomach ulcer. Okay, going on. My wife Martha was the medical officer. Okay, so his wife obviously was a nurse. Okay, and 她是护士, but she was the medical officer, 医护人员. So she was in charge, no doctors there. So she's the one 就负责那个地方，可能有一个诊所. Okay, my wife was the medical officer, and she tried to find a cure. 要去找一个这个治疗的方法, but it wasn't working. What does that mean? It wasn't working. In other words, she was not being successful. My friend says that he was getting sicker and sicker and sicker. This is very dangerous, extremely dangerous. And of course, 很遥远的一个地方 going on. She needed to have blood tests to diagnose the illness. So she needed to diagnose, what is it? That's a 诊断, to diagnose. Diagnose. 诊断, okay? 这个病, okay? 病. Well, blood tests, what does that mean? She needed to做blood 这个血的一些试验 blood tests 这个血的这个试验 So Next. So she decided I'd have to go to a hospital in New Zealand. Okay? That's easy to say. Nowadays, it's easy to say, oh, you got to go to a hospital. Okay? It's easy to say. She decided I would have to go to a hospital in, Xishilan. But the hospital was how far away? 3,200 miles away. Now, if you're used to kilometers, 3,000, it would be more like 4,000, 4,000 or 5,000 kilometers away. That is a long distance. But my friend was sick. He had Wei Kuiyang. He had a stomach ulcer. So his wife says, you must go. Now, finding a ship to stop at Pitcairn was difficult. Remember, it's not easy to find a ship going to Pitcairn Island. They just don't go there. But after 2 weeks, 过了2个星期 of waiting, of course my friend is sick, right? And he's just waiting and waiting and waiting. A ship stopped to pick me up. Okay, to pick him up means that he could get on the ship and the ship would take him to New Zealand. Going on? And then it took 6 days to get there. Well, that's not too bad. 6 days of traveling 3,200 miles. That's not too bad. I mean, a ship goes night and day, and it took 6 days to get there. All along, my friend is sick, right? Going on. I was only in the hospital for 10 days. So my friend said, I was only in the hospital 10 days. Whoa. Nowadays, we say 10 days in the hospital is bad news. 10天在医院住医院不是开玩笑 okay? I was only in the hospital 10 days. Okay? But it's hard to find a ship that's willing to stop at Pitcairn because it's off the shipping lanes. Okay, now we have already said that, but we're going to say it again because the island, Pitcairn Island, is off the usual shipping lanes. It's a long, long ways away. He goes to New Zealand. He's in the hospital 10 days, and he gets out of the hospital, and he's ready to go back home to Pitcairn. But it's hard to find a ship willing to stop at Pitcairn. The ships don't stop by there. Why? Because that's not the usual, 不是一般的这个平常的这个航线. Going on. I worked at odd jobs. What does it mean to work at odd jobs? That means to do 一些零碎的工作，打工. It's not, just little things, odd jobs. Near Auckland, New Zealand, Auckland, 新西兰. While my employer, that means the company that was his employer, looked for a ship. So they started looking for a ship. 他们去找一个船要带我回去. Finally, after 3 months, can you imagine this? They were looking for a ship to go back to Pitcairn Island, and it took them after 3 months, 3个月, we found a ship. But now, notice, here's a test for your geography. 现在要考你的地理. Okay, where's New Zealand? That's way down in the 南半球. Okay, in the southern hemisphere. Okay, but the ship was docked in Houston, Texas, 在美国德州的 Houston 这个城市. Now, think about this. Texas is in the 北半球, and they're down in the 南半球, the southern hemisphere, northern hemisphere. I mean, we're talking about huge distances. Okay, so I flew from New Zealand. No, fortunately, now we have airplanes. I flew to Los Angeles, 洛杉矶, where my parents, 我的父母亲, 就去接我. Okay, now we're talking about a long, long ways. Where does he want to go? He wants to go out in the ocean, and he has to fly all the way back to America. But we're not done yet. Continue on. They drove me to Fort Worth, Texas. Okay, so they drove me, 就是开车子送我到德州 Fort Worth, Texas. And my brother drove me down to Houston. 然后我的弟弟就用他的车子送我到德州另外一个地方，就是 Houston. So notice, he gets a little sick. Actually, Wei Kuiyang is nothing to be joking about. And now he's trying to get home, and he's jumping all over the world. 全球就跳来跳去 going on. The ship stopped at Curacao in the Caribbean. Caribbean, 加勒比海. Okay, so now this ship is starting to travel, and then went through the Panama Canal. The Panama Canal, okay, Panama. Okay, but I want you to stop here for a second, because when I was doing this story, I thought this was interesting. Canal. Do you know what a canal is? Actually, canal has 2 translations. Panama. Okay, this one here, Panama. 这个运河. Okay, this is a canal. 运河. Well, you can understand that because the ships travel on in the canal. 运. They're traveling. They're moving. Okay? But canal also means 水沟. 水沟. So it has 2 meanings, and you've got to pay attention. But anyway, Panama, 这个运河. So now they go to Curacao in the Caribbean, 这个加勒比海. Okay? And then they went 经过这个 Panama Canal, Panama. Okay? I'm having a hard time with it. Panama. Let's just say Panama Canal. You know what it is. Why should I say Chinese? After 3 weeks at sea, 3个星期在海边, I finally arrived back at Pitcairn. Okay? 终于来到我的家 Pitcairn Island. Now notice this. Okay? 4 months after I left. 过了4个月才能够回 到家. Can you imagine? You went to see the doctor. Can you imagine? Oh, I'm going to go down and see the doctor. 4 months later, you finally come home. Oops, a little problem there, okay? It's the longest time I've ever been away from home. 我离开家最长的时间就是这么多. Okay, well, there you have my friend's story. Maybe we get Mrs. Ash to come out here for a few more minutes here. Thank you. My storyteller has arrived. Usually when you go see the doctor, how long does it take?
Oh, I don't know. It depends on how sick you are.
Well, I mean, going from your house to the doctor's house.
Oh, just...
I mean, not the doctor's house. Let's say to the hospital.
Office.
Okay. Well,
To the hospital?
yeah. Because the doctor's office is in the hospital. How long from your house to the hospital or to the clinic?
Right now?
Right now.
Oh, just about 5 minutes.
You can do it in 2 minutes. We live right next to a hospital. Okay. Can you imagine leaving home and going to the hospital and you get back home 4 months, 4个月以后?
Oh, no.
Oh, no, it wouldn't work.
No.
We're talking about a very strange situation.
That's right.
Well, I hope that you've enjoyed our story today. Life on Pitcairn Island. I'm sure that was very, very interesting. Okay, you want to write a letter to us? Write an email instead. theoldprincipal@gmail.com. 老校长@gmail.com. Or 可以去我们的网站看我们的网站，我们的网站是 www.theoldprincipal.org. Thank you for joining us and hope you come back for another interesting story.
Bye-bye.